Not on my device. There we go. And we're live. Here we go. Thank you for using the chat to introduce yourself. Please continue to do that. We really appreciate you. Put your website in the chat, put your LinkedIn in the chat. Let's get to know each other a bit. We had close to 30 registrations for this event, so I know we're going to have more people jumping on. If you just popped on, again, please keep yourself on mute until we call on you. Put questions in the chat, comments in the chat. We'll definitely get to them. This will be interactive. So Jill, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first, if I may, because you are the talented woman that put this event together. I know you have a team, a committee who helped you. If you want to thank anybody else for helping you with this event, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Felina, and thank you for panelists for coming. My name's Jill Rowan. I am a San Diegan businesswoman. I have a small marketing consultancy focusing on the life science and biotech industry. I just joined the board of NAWBO San Diego about a year ago as the advocacy director. And it's really been new for me. I was like, well, I don't really know a lot, but I really want to learn. And Felina's like, yeah, let's do it. So, luckily we have a great team. We have a nice community for Deanna and Janendra. Maybe after I speak, you can introduce yourself as well. Who have really been, I feel like you guys are really the experts here and kind of helping me. So we've been putting together some great programs just like this to really boost our knowledge and education of advocacy and general and how government works really and federal, state and local. And then obviously specifically for women-owned businesses and diverse-owned businesses, just as a larger topic. So thank you all so much for coming here. And like Felina said, please feel free to speak up. I can put my info in the chat. We always want new members, and you can we're always open for more people, so feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Diana, do you want to say hello?
Unmute myself. Hello, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Jill did a wonderful job in kind of leading this effort. We wanted to focus on procurement, and hopefully by the end of this session, you'll understand why, how critical it is, and how advocacy kind of interplays with this issue. So thank you all for coming.
Awesome, thank you. And sorry, Janendra, I hit you on mute for a sec because there was a little bit of movement. Are you able to unmute and say a quick hello? She's working on it. All right, if she comes back and unmutes, we'll say hello to Janendra as well. I think she might be driving. So let's go ahead and dive in. We have three amazing experts with us this evening to talk about this very important topic, procurement. Jill and I were having this conversation before about the word procurement. And for a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, it's kind of this very corporate feeling word. But I think the bottom line, I'll just put it in my own words here. There's a lot of money out there, ladies. There's a lot of opportunity for us to contract directly with government agencies and corporations that have set-asides. And there's a lot of opportunity to even subcontract. I know that's going to be part of the conversation because sometimes if you're a solo business owner, it seems pretty daunting to go after these $1 million contracts. So this is important, and NAWBO is important in this conversation because NAWBO, and Lori specifically, is fighting for the rights of women business owners, both at the state level. Lori's very involved here at the state level and also at the federal level, making sure that women have a place at the table and have equal opportunities for some of these opportunities to gain a foothold with these contracts. So we definitely want you to walk away with the idea that you want to get involved. This is important. This is not a passive opportunity. We're hoping to, as Jill said, get you involved in these conversations that we're having at the state and federal level. So again, we've got our experts here this evening to share. We're going to be touching on three different areas: education, particular bills of interest, and then giving you some really concrete examples of how you can get involved. So before we dive into this education piece, kind of the what is procurement, what does that look like? How does it work? I am going to ask our three experts, and Marnie, I'm going to start with you. So if you want to go ahead and pull off mute and just give us a little bit of background on who you are and why this topic is important to you, please.
Thank you, Felina, and thank you, Jill, and everyone who and Diana, for everyone who organized this panel. It's wonderful to meet all of you and to get to be introduced to NAWBO. This is fantastic. I'm really glad to see that San Diego has a strong chapter because women need to stick together in so many endeavors. So my name is Marnie Von Wilpert. I am a San Diego City Council member. I represent the northeastern part of the city, from Scripps Ranch to Carmel Mountain to Rancho Bernardo, Penasquitos, and I was the only woman in my race. And it was me and 4 men. The nickname I was given was the little girl who's running for office. And they all said, oh, this little girl isn't going to raise any money. She's not going to get any votes. And I beat all of the men for this seat. So I understand what it's like to be trying to take on the old boys club and push past it. I'm actually the first woman to represent this part of the city in 25 years. It's always been men. So it's really nice to be able to just reflect upon the fact that, anyone who puts themselves out there can and deserves to be a leader in government, in business, in their communities. And it's really unfortunate that we have to fight stereotypes and stigma, and people of color, and especially women of color, have even more barriers than I did. And so it's really great to see a group of women who are so organized and passionate and powerful in your own right. And I'm very honored to be here. So a little bit about me, my background. I'm a San Diego native. I grew up in Scripps Ranch. I actually just had my 20-year high school reunion from Scripps Ranch High School a few weekends ago, and it was fantastic to see everybody. I served in the United States Peace Corps in Botswana, in Sub-Saharan Africa during the AIDS crisis down there. So this is the second public health crisis I've been through. My job was to be a social worker. I took care of children born with HIV whose parents had died of AIDS in the AIDS epidemic. So I've done a lot of work around public health and trying to get society back on track. Big believer in making sure that I was vaccinated and everyone's vaccinated so we can get past this pandemic and move on and keep our businesses open and keep people healthy. That's a side note, but I then came back and I became an attorney. That's my trade. I went to Fordham Law School in New York City. I then moved to Mississippi. I got a $100,000 grant from Skadden Arps to open a civil rights clinic when I graduated, to help people as I'd done abroad, but home in my own country. A lot of LGBTQ folks who face discrimination in the Deep South, or people who had HIV or AIDS or cancer and were being fired from their jobs or evicted from their homes because of their medical condition. And I then worked in Congress for a year for Congressman Bobby Scott. I enforced workers' rights all throughout the country at the National Labor Relations Board, in the appellate and Supreme Court litigation branch, in the enforcement litigation. And a lot of the work I did was finding out about women who found out they weren't being paid the same as their male counterparts, or that everyone was being sexually harassed by the same manager, and they spoke up as a group. You don't need union representation to have the protections of the National Labor Relations Act. If it's 2 or more people who speak up about their working conditions, you cannot be fired for that. You cannot be terminated or demoted for asking to be paid the same as your male counterparts, or asking to go to a work environment where you are not in fear of sexual harassment. So I used to go in and get their jobs back and work with employers to make sure that they did better. So I loved it. But then I moved back home to San Diego, and I became a deputy city attorney. And one of the favorite jobs I had in that role was actually enforcing the law that required women to be allowed into corporate boardrooms in California.
Yeah, it's an important topic.
Yes.
I want to make sure
Am I
we
going
have
too
time
long? Okay, sorry.
to get to
Cut me
the
off.
bulk of
I'm a
this.
politician and a lawyer, so you need to cut me off. So.
No, it's okay. Just last question, Marnie, is why is this topic of procurement specifically important to you in your district? And then we'll come over to Lori.
Of course, yes. So I am the head of the Active Transportation and Infrastructure Committee here at City Hall. We have various committees, And on the construction side, we as a city hand out hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts every year to businesses in San Diego and the surrounding areas. The city of San Diego did a study on our procurement, procurement is the process by which our government hires outside contracts for services, goods, services, or construction equipment and the actual building. And we found that women and minorities and veteran-owned businesses and people with disabilities have a stark disparity in the amount of contracts they are awarded compared to businesses owned by white men. So I'm glad the city did this study because we're the first city of our size to do this. We have to figure out how to fix it. So I'm happy to delve into that more, but that's why I'm here. And that's why procurement is so important, because it's city services to the public, a lot of dollars on the table, and we need to figure out how to get more women into these contracts.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marnie. I appreciate it. Lori, coming over to you for a brief intro.
Great, thank you so much. I'm telling you, Councilwoman, we need you in Sacramento. So hopefully we need you in the Assembly, we need you in the Senate. We need someone of your knowledge, your passion. You share that with us. You mentioned SB 826, the corporate women on boards. I was NAWBO's lobbyist on that bill, and we went against the California Chamber, California Manufacturers and Technology Association. Both were led by women. So that's the kind of opposition that, that we were dealing with, people that should be sitting on the same side of the table working with us. So anyway, I'm Lori Kammerer. I am the president of Kammerer & Company. I've been a lobbyist for about 30 years in Sacramento. I know I don't look that old, but I have the shimmer, so you can't really
the shimmer filter.
Yeah, it's like on dark. And so, but anyway, so I love what I do. My clients are small businesses. I do lobbying for NAWBO California, and I'm also a board member of NAWBO Sacramento Valley chapter since about 2016. I do my lobbying pro bono for NAWBO. The rest of my clients I charge. I have healthcare, and I represent medical provider networks. I have a large presence in the, despite my height, in the workers' compensation area. So that's where I am. Plus, small business is my love. So anyway, that's what I do. And did you want to ask me some questions? Or?
Yeah, we'll come back to it because we're going to definitely get to this education and what bills are an important piece of this conversation. So perfect, Lori. Shanae, coming over to you, last but not least, for a brief intro.
Well, thank you so much, Felina and Jill, and thank you both for having this. This is really, I love the word procurement. It's been in my blood for about more than 20 years. And our company, Redwood Resources, actually started in Oakland, helping contractors get on public agency projects. And so we've morphed since that. In our company, we help companies navigate through the procurement process, helping to scale. And we also design business programs with a community and inclusion lens to them from the business programmatic side. This is very important to me. So, when anyone talks about procurement, because I think that is, a lot of people think of it as a dirty word, their eyes glaze over and they don't understand and they think it's too cumbersome for them. But I'm really excited about NAWBO San Diego taking this on today. Our work and my company has been involved with advocacy for a long time around this, around helping small and diverse businesses. So it's very exciting to be a part of it today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So a bit more, we've talked a little bit about this on kind of the education. I think we've kind of covered what is procurement. Marnie, you gave us a really great definition on that. So how does it work? And Marnie, maybe I'm going to bring it back over to you first. Maybe just a bit of the logistics, so to speak, on, we've got women here who are saying, hey, like, Sean, I'm gonna use you as my example. Sean Joe has a HR business. If Sean said, I want to see if I can take my business or my talents into working with, we'll say government agencies, right? So we say city and county and state and federal. I mean, there's lots and lots of layers in here. What does that look like for her? What are some of the things that she should be thinking of? And obviously, Lori and Shanae, feel free to jump in, here as well. But Marnie, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so the first thing, the city of San Diego is constantly soliciting bids for everything from major construction issues, such as we have to replace a water or sewer pipeline, all the way to basic services such as hiring security and a security company for some of our homeless bridge shelters, to doing uniform procurement for some of our city workers. IT services, for example, are a big thing that we contract out, and we get a specialized business to provide special IT services to some of our departments. So the gambit is large. You never know what we're going to need. We just issued for the large end of things, a $50 million contract with Motorola to replace all of our emergency radios, because the city isn't in the business of manufacturing and producing emergency radios. We have to procure them from somewhere. So I only see at city council the big contracts, because those are by law the ones that come to us. But there are so many others that can be anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 that can be big for a small business. And so we do at the city have a whole webpage dedicated to procurement, and it lists, if you just look at, you can even Google City of San Diego procurement, and purchasing and contracting is the main webpage. There's a list for bid opportunities, see what's on there. You can become a procurement a vendor that a procurement specialist can then look to. So you can register as a vendor with our city. And the programs we have for small businesses and emerging businesses are really the key, I think, for this group. So as many of you know, in 1996, the voters of California decided to vote for a proposition that outlawed affirmative action. So Proposition 2009, which was passed in 1996, says that no state or local government entity can award preference to a woman-owned business or a business based on Black-owned business or a Latina-owned business. And Prop 16 in the 2020 ballot would have overturned that ban, but the voters didn't vote for it. It didn't make it. So that's why the way that the city is still trying to engage people who are not just the big, corporate names, is through our small business leaders program and our emerging business leaders program. And so we do give preference to small and locally owned businesses. And that's a great way for firms that are owned by women or by people, minorities, who might not the bigger ones, because there's generally smaller businesses to get in. I will say that on our procurement side, between our engineering and capital projects, which is our construction side, versus our purchases and services, which is a lot of the other things that we do, mainly women-owned businesses, we see a higher representation in our purchasing and services rather than our construction companies. So we're trying to work on that, get more women-owned businesses at the top for our construction companies. But that's what you would do, is first just engage in the city's web pages and see what's out there, what's available, what can I bid for, how do I register to become a vendor with the city of San Diego. And there are folks who can answer your questions. We actually do have a small business concierge now, which was a silver lining of the pandemic. And the city's economic development department is the one who runs that. And they originally were intended to help small businesses in San Diego apply for things such as the PPP loans or any other kind of economic relief. But they can answer all sorts of questions and get you in touch with our procurement specialist if you have questions about what you need. So I highly encourage you to engage with us, and you can email our office, you can email Bridget, and we can get you in touch with the folks you need to become vendors for the city of San Diego and not miss out on these important dollars.
Awesome. I love that. And so you brought up a good point there, Marnie, and I was thinking the same thing, like big construction, big, to your point, we have a lot more women who are service providers. Sadly, the statistic, and I know we're all here to change it, is 87% of women-owned businesses in the US have 0 full-time employees. That is a sad statistic. And 97% of women-owned businesses in the US never break $1 million in sales mark. So we are talking about, mostly small businesses. We want to change that. We are changing that. But at the same time, let's go to that subcontract conversation. And maybe, Shanae, you might be a good person to tackle this. Again, using Sean as my example, she is a professional services provider, so she's not going to go, pave a freeway. So how might she then work with maybe some of these primes, if I'm using that word correctly, to position herself to support some of these projects?
Sure. So as the council member said, having a local small preference is a great thing. So kudos to your city for implementing that. And it did come about because of, as she mentioned, Prop 209 did not allow any more race and gender. And so women were removed from that opportunity. But there are cities like San Diego that have a local and a small business preference. You know, this industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And so when we talked earlier about the eyes glazing over in procurement, one of the things that I say is take a digestible, it's like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Taking something small, a small segment, and not looking at every shiny object in the world. A lot of people will say, oh, there's this procurement and this certification or this one and this one. Look at what she does. So she's in professional services, identifying who buys what she sells. So it's professional services. And again, tell me the industry. What is the industry?
HR, human resources.
HR. Okay. So that falls usually under leadership training. Almost every entity will procure that service, and they may call it something different. It could be management experience. So I remember one time we had NAWBO Los Angeles had a roundtable with one of the senators, and one of the women around the room does that kind of service. So they procured her as a woman-owned business to help leadership training for the senators. So there are those kinds of opportunities that you could look at. One of the things I would say is every city, every municipality, all of them have some kind of discretionary budget along those lines. That is probably going to fall within, it could fall within the non-open bid market. And when we say open bid means everybody bids on it. But there are some threshold amounts, and I don't know what it is for the city. We could look at that and find out what is their threshold mark. And it could be 75,000. For the state, it's 250,000, which means that up to $250,000, they do not have to go and open source it or open bid it out. Those are kind of the places I would start for her, is to find some of those small $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $75,000 opportunities and get her foot in the door, showing proof of performance, because that is, as she builds her business up, they're going to look for proof of performance.
What does that mean exactly? How do they define it?
That you've done work like this before for a municipality or for an
for a
agency or some kind of,
Okay.
or whatever it is. It could be, if it's government, they want proof of performance, or if it's a corporation, another thing.
Okay, so they will take corporate experience, because that's the chicken and the egg, right? Like, how do I show proof until I get my first government contract?
Exactly. And so I just look at that for the municipal side, but she also has opportunities on the corporate side. You know, being a woman-owned business is a great thing in today's world. I really believe that. And so she can take that. And I think, you know, obviously getting a certification, some people feel they don't want to get it because they want to feel that they are handicapped by a certification. And all a certification is something that gives you a foot in the door, like a degree. You know, you get your master's or your business degree because you want to just have something that gets your foot in the door. It doesn't guarantee the work to you, but I would suggest she look at getting a local small business certification right there in San Diego. Find out what the city procures, find out what the discretionary threshold is, and pitch her services on the leadership development side of her HR business to them as well. The other side of that for her is the corporate side. So on the corporate, similar thing, they also have thresholds. I had one client get into a Fortune 10 company by starting with one annual report. She started with an annual report, $3,500. She did that and then moved up and moved up. So those are the ways that I would suggest for someone new to procurement to get your foot wet.
Awesome. I love it. Great. Okay. So I want to get into some specific examples, more specific examples here. But before we do this, I'm going to bring this over to you, Lori. There's a lot of bills that are out there that are important in this conversation, and I'm going to type a few of those in the chat here. 915, 1072, HR 227. We hear these like numbers.
Right. Well, if I could also say a couple things on that, just to bring it back, because I think, you know, we've heard from the city council member on what you can do locally. Sean, I'm looking at you, and I'm just taking you as an example. You know, and what Shanae said was excellent and kind of gave me food for thought. I also wanted to comment on what the council member said, women in construction. You know, we have a California organization. So if you guys could reach out to them, there's a ton of them. I know we have a lot of women in construction in Northern California. I'm sure they are spread all over the state. So California Women in Construction, if you need contact information, just let me know. One other thing I wanted to mention too, become a certified small business, right? That's the first thing you want to do. Get your certification. Also, I believe they're still doing the certified women-owned business that you've got, that you'll be able to check a box that you are a woman business, a woman in business. Finally, we have a very good opportunity working with the Department of General Services. NAWBO California's president has met with DGS's new director, Anna Lasso, and she is very excited about NAWBO and very excited about procurement for women. So she's our biggest ally besides our city council member in San Diego. She is really wanting to help women. So that's kind of takes us into the legislation. But also the Department of General Services, if you want to look at the contract opportunities that they have, go to their website. Now, Department of General Services is one of the largest purchasers in the state of California, the largest department. They do all of the buying for the state of California. So it first seems a little intimidating. It's like, what am I going to do? How do I navigate? Just go to the DGS Small Business Advisory Council, Small Business Advisory Council. And if you Google that up, that will take you to several links that show contracting opportunities. And so Shyla Mystery, who is NAWBO LA, is the NAWBO representative on the DGS's Small Business Advisory Council. I'm on there for Small Business California, but I've always got her back for NAWBO. So that's something that I would suggest. So now I was writing all these things down.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. That's helpful. And
Well,
before we get into bills, I just want to ask maybe Jill or even Diana, you can help me out with Googling that and putting the direct link in the chat while we
Yeah, thank you. I'm like ferociously Googling.
I know.
I couldn't remember how to spell council. I was like,
Not the attorney. Not the attorney.
Amy's having a party over there. She went from COVID to party in like 2 seconds. I don't know. Okay, sorry about that.
Alina, can I just add one quick thing about the DGS? A lot of times there are entities that will say they will charge you for certifications, and there's nothing wrong with that. The thing that's great about DGS and the city of San Diego, if they have a certification or for small or local, there's no fee for that. In the DGS one in state, it takes less than an hour. Just get all your data together. And I put in the chat that they will procure up to $250,000 without open bid. So it's a really great place to start.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Lori, what bills should we be writing letters for?
Well, right along the line, on the procurement issue, we lost a really good bill this year. It was a bill that I was telling everybody, oh, I'm sure the governor's going to sign this bill. Basically, it was Assembly Bill 915 that codified Governor Schwarzenegger's rule, basically his executive order that said all of the state agencies will achieve a goal, right? A goal, not shall, but a goal of doing 25% of their contracts with small businesses. And that was what it was. And that was done back, I want to say 2005, 2006, somewhere along that time. So since that time, all the Republicans got around this bill and this order, and wanted to codify it. Well, the bill never went anywhere. We have a Democratic majority. This year, Assembly Member David Chu, Democrat out of San Francisco, and a very, very strong advocate for small businesses, said, I'll do the bill. So I thought, oh boy, you got David, that you got the governor's going to be supporting this. We've, had COVID pandemic, COVID recovery, wildfires and everything else. This is the time. This bill is going to be codified. Now it's a goal, right? So some people kind of roll their eyes. Well, the first thing is get that goal codified, and then let's make it a shall, right? And so they're trying to get that done. However, the bill got stuck in the fiscal committee. The bill was held. I had lunch with their lobbyists. Now, this bill, it was sponsored by the California Asian Pacific Chamber, there were about 25 small business associations that were supporting this bill, including the Hispanic, the Black, and African American chambers, right? So you had everybody on this bill. So I met with David, their lobbyist, the other day, and I said, what happened? How did that bill fail? And he said, we weren't the top 3 on Assembly Member Chu's list. And so that bill didn't get out of appropriations because Department of General Services put a very high price tag on what it would cost the state of California to implement the bill. Now, I said to him, I said, I'm going to talk to NAWBO California because, if NAWBO California were co-sponsoring that bill with you, that bill would have passed. And I say that because of what we had to go through with the bill signing over my shoulder, SB 826. That bill squeaked out of the Assembly and it squeaked out of the Senate. And Shanae, because you were there. And we had women testifying out of the room. We looked like a labor group that, when the SEIU comes to the Capitol to testify, they're lined up all the way out the door. You always know it's the unions. The women were there for that bill. And that's what we needed to do, was we needed to be there. The Asian Chamber did a great job. He was wonderful. And now Assemblyman Chu has now been appointed, I think, city attorney. So he's leaving. And so we'll have another special election in San Francisco. So right now we're looking for an author. So I will present to NAWBO California's board once, we figure out that they're going to be a go, that we co-sponsor with the Asian Chamber, because they need us. They need NAWBO. They need the women in the building, the women that support all of the businesses in California there. They're not going to tell us no. And I think we need a woman author.
Yeah, that's great. So when does that start and when does it end?
Well, everybody's working on stuff now. I mean, the legislature has been on their break since the end of August, and it was mid-September, September 10th. Governor had until October 10th to sign or veto bills. And then his recall, of course, failed. So he's, continuing on. It was a very nervous time because a lot of people didn't know, who was going to be the next governor. But at the same time, the governor, signed the bills that we expected him to sign. But just to give you just a quick, I don't know if you guys like the trivia stuff, but there were over 2,700 bills sent to the governor just this year. A lot of them were carryover because 2020 was a shutdown year with the pandemic. Over 2,700. Of those 2,700 through the legislature, 836 bills were sent to his desk. So that was a big cut. Of those 836 bills, this is what I love. He signed 770 bills, which is 92%. And he vetoed 66%. I'm sorry, excuse me. He vetoed 66 bills. He signed 770, vetoed 66, which was a 7.9%. Now, this is all in NAWBO California's newsletter that's online, if you guys want to get the facts. But I just thought that was very interesting, with this governor. So what are they doing to answer your question? Right now, Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce is looking for an author. I recommended several women to him and told him that I would check with NAWBO California and that I would make the recommendation that they co-sponsor this bill. He was very relieved, very happy. It's a huge lift. And if you guys haven't met Pat Fong Kushida, who's the president of Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce, she is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she could handle that bill on her own, but I think it would be really good for us to work with them. But anyway, that's this group. Go ahead.
Oh, but I one of the questions I kind of have from my naivete, it's like, all right, so this bill, it didn't pass because you didn't have women. Love that message. So say we all come together, we have our voices heard, we pass this bill. Now government and contracts are legally obligated to contract 25% of their procurement to women and diverse-owned businesses. But do people, does people actually watch, check that to make sure people are actually doing that? Yeah, I know we passed the law, but I mean, is it kind of like some other law that
Well, and the thing is, we want to be clear about that too. This is a goal. right?
Mhm.
There's no shall for our attorneys in the room, our city council member and others. This is, and I'm not an attorney, married to one. So this is a goal, but the thing is, this is the first step. And there's also language in the bill that requires a report to the legislature from DGS to show what departments have not met that goal and where they are in that goal. Now, there are some departments that are simply not going to be able to make that goal, right? Well, they're going to have to provide a reason why. I can give you a couple of examples. One of them is the fleet, right? DGS. What car dealer in California could come up with 500 Fords for the CHP cars and give the state a fair deal? No, they have to go straight to Ford, right? So there's some things that they can't do, but there are other products and other goods and other things that fleet needs that those contracts could be unbundled or separated so that they could be put into better chunks for women. Still $1 million contracts, and I say for women, for smaller businesses. But what we're trying to do is to hold them to the women and minority owned in unrepresented areas. So did that answer your question? Okay, so that's the bill. That's 9:15. So we'll have more information on that. The bill, they can't really do anything with introducing a bill until January 6th when they come back from their interim. It'll be the second year of the 2-year session. So what they're going to do is reintroduce the bill, same bill, different number, and then they're going to check out who the author could be. President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, right in your area would be perfect. Senator Hueso is terming out, and so he's leaving. Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez, she's got a lot of things going on with the independent contractor bill. So I don't know that she would be our best bet, but I don't know that we'd be her top priority either. I mean, I'm being very honest. I love her dearly, but she's, her agenda, are the unions and, going after the gig economy.
Let's just be honest. She has all us small business owners scared as hell. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. She's, she is just as passionate as we are.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
workers.
understand.
But there's others, there's others that would be good. And the President Pro Tem would be awesome. Tony Atkins, her wife is a small business owner, very active in the community. Another thing I wanted to mention, I don't want to forget this either, is on the procurement, very, very important. And I haven't heard anything today, besides, reaching out to the SBDCs. You guys have the most phenomenal small business development centers in the district. And if you haven't reached out or communicated with Danny Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Which is great. Dan, reach out to Danny, tell him I sing his praises. I do public affairs for the SBDCs. There's 5 leads in California. I've worked very closely with Danny. He's so connected to the community that, if you need help in procurement, he's very active with, a lot of the members, in Sacramento, providing district profiles. They want to know, well, how many women did we, started small businesses during the pandemic? They have the exact data because they're required to report it to the state and to the federal government to keep those matching funds. So I want to give a shout out to Danny.
Yes.
If you need his contact information and you don't have it handy.
I just put it in the chat. He goes by Daniel, but he goes by Danny, as well. So yeah, his email's in the chat. Copy it down, use it. He's amazing.
Call him up.
And Marnie, I would kind of love to hear from your perspective too on your role on passing this legislation. Then once it's passed, can we talk? Do people talk with your office about making sure these laws are upheld and stuff like that? Do you play a role in that? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There's so many layers of government and we don't teach civics.
Yeah, I know.
I know. And we as a society don't teach civic education and government education like we used to.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand the different roles of government, honestly, until I went to law school. And I understand what the 4th branch of the federal government is, which is the administrative agencies, which we have here in the state of California as well. And, so my role at city council as a legislator is I get to help write the laws. Many of them are already existing that deal with how we do procurement for the city, for example. And so we are in the bounds of state law. We're in those confines. And so since Prop 209 was passed, I would love to write a law that says we give extra preference to women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses or people with disabilities, because we want to make sure they have a foothold. We're not allowed to do that under state law. So we have to be more creative in how we do promote and make sure that our taxpayer dollars, which all of you are taxpayers, you're all creating business in our economy. You should all have a fair shot at providing services to the city, which we need, that every other business does. So the way that we do then, which was what Shana has been discussing and Lori has been discussing, is really by focusing on getting small minority owned or small businesses in and locally owned businesses, because women owned businesses tend to be smaller and tend to be locally owned. And so that's really the key. So the way that we help enforce the rules is one of the when I was a deputy city attorney before I ran for office, we enforced state law when we could. So that's when the law that came down that Lori was talking about. And thank you for championing that law to allow to make sure that women are allowed in boardrooms. Guess what? Shocking. Tons of women have been found to be qualified in these amazing positions. And now the boards are doing better than they ever have. And because of this California law, now over 50% of major, Fortune 500s have women on their boards, not just in California, but the rest of the country's followed. But I helped enforce that law. But now that I'm an elected official, it's a little bit different. So one of the laws that one of the programs we're really trying to work on is making sure that we enforce our EEO goals, which is equal employment opportunity goals. Since, like we said, we can't actually give preference based on gender or race. What we can do, though, is make sure we're not giving taxpayer dollars away to companies who are actively discriminating against women or against people of color, or have people who are sexually harassing their employees. So that's one thing we do require our contractors to do, is affirmatively state they are not under investigation or have charges by the EEOC, that they have not been found to be discriminating against people or sexually harassing people. One of the big barriers is these non-disclosure agreements, which, Lorena Gonzalez has been trying to fight in the state legislature, is prohibiting companies from requiring women to sign non-disclosure agreements. Say, I will not tell the world the sexual harassment I experienced and had to deal with in this settlement agreement, because then you don't have to report it on a city contract. And we could then be unknowingly handing out tens of millions of dollars to a contractor who has been a horrible actor in our society. But so that's one of the things we do, is look at that and make sure that we're not giving contracts out to businesses that are actively doing harm. But I want to talk about the subcontracting too, because that's a great way to get in on some of these bigger contracts. So we do allow the big contractors, the big kahunas in town, to get small business preference and local business preference if they have subcontracted with these businesses. So they are actively soliciting businesses like all of yours to say, please come on this bid with me. Let me list you as a subcontractor, because that will increase our chances of getting the general prime contract. So that is one thing I highly recommend that you do, is start learning to network with some of the bigger contractors. It's a great way, because they're actively looking for you too. And make sure that you do become a listed vendor with the city of San Diego. Even if there's not a contract you want to bid on right now, you don't want to be behind the ball. You want to have that step done. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do that, get that done, get on the list, so that when bids come out, you're already ready to take that next step. So there's so many opportunities. And honestly, if you are aware of, if you say you have experience with a company that you go into and say, I have an incredible portfolio, I have worked for other small municipalities around San Diego County, we have a track record, and you face a guy who says, well, come to dinner with me, or why don't you come to the bar with me and talk about it? Or how about you do this? Feel free to report it to us, to the city. You can report to me anonymously. You can report to others, purchasing and contracting. There's all sorts of different ways you can tell the city about this, because then we will do our own independent investigation to make sure we're not continuing to give money to someone who's harming people. So, and I know that still happens. So
I'm so glad you brought that up, Marnie. Thank you so much. And I just want to underline what you said, because I think for, as we grow as women-owned businesses, we're getting bigger, we're going to hit that $1 million mark. But as we get there, these opportunities to do exactly what you just said, I think is really, really relevant to this audience for NAWBO San Diego. I want to kind of move that into the example portion of our conversation here, because we have about 12 minutes left in this particular conversation. We can continue it at other times, but what would, Sean, I'm going to use you as an example again. And I will get back, there was a question that came up from Jamie, a comment, and I'll get back to this with Lori here in a sec, but so what should Sean do? Like, should she make a list of who is, who are the primes? Again, I don't know if that's the right word, but who are the people that are contracting with the city, and contact them and say, look, I can be an asset to you as you go for these projects. I'm a woman-owned business. Like, what does that look like?
I mean, that's definitely one way to do it. I will fully admit I'm not an expert in how to network with because I'm in the legal world. And so that's always been my network. But I do know there are many associations around town. So for example, the BIA, the Building Industry Association, go to their networking events. There's other purchasing and contracting groups that you can get involved with. The Chamber of Commerce, for example, the Downtown Partnership with the City of San Diego, a lot of their businesses are contractors with the City of San Diego. And a lot of them have separate groups directed towards women-owned businesses. And so I would just start networking in those circles, make yourself known, attend some of their events, because when the bigger contractors who do reach out to them and say, for example, the sports arena, we're going to have to completely redo the Midway district, and that's going to require, housing planners and construction management and design firms, architecture, transit planners, all sorts of things, landscape architecture, for example. They will come to the chamber and say, hey, we need some small business owners to be able to get on our contract so we can get that bid. And so if they know your names and know who you are, they'll say, oh, you should reach out to Shanae, you should reach out to Lori or to Sean or to Diana. So that's how I would start to do it. But I think that maybe Lori or Shanae might even have better ideas than I do. So
yeah. Shanae, I'm going to come over to you on this. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sean, again, you're in the HR, right? Can you expand about like some buckets of services that you provide?
Yeah, so HR consulting for small and medium-sized businesses. So it can be anything from handbooks to training, and more HR like leadership and guidance, developing policies and processes.
Okay, and policies and processes as well. So those, I think for that and where you are in your space, I definitely think, like the council member said, getting your local and small business certification for San Diego is a good way to go, because they can do that direct with you. You don't need that prime above you. And someone had mentioned in here how great subcontracting is, and it is great. You just know that you don't control that relationship. You will be a sub, so the prime will always control it. So that would be what I would say for you first, because you can get some of those low-hanging fruit from your training that you're doing, from your leadership and that type of thing. Typically, when these large construction projects come out in the pursuits, they won't have that as a component of the bid. So they won't say, we need someone who can do HR services and this kind of thing, right? Our leadership training within that construction bid. Your bet there would be more on, I would say, if I were working with you, I'd say target the local city. That's the first place for you, and get that low hanging fruit for you. Also DGS, Lori mentioned DGS. That's a great way. You can go up to 250,000 and do some of their leadership training. That's an excellent one, because they do all the different departments within the state. All of them need management, and they're usually not on the open market. The other one is corporations. And I think for you, because of, and that's where the women-owned small business can come in. And I know we threw out a lot of things for you. Council member did mention, because of Prop 209, you can't designate your women-owned certification as a benefit for local funds. So basically that just means in California, any kind of funds that come from state money or from local money or local tax dollars, you can't, your certification as a woman-owned business doesn't matter, but local, small, it would matter for you. your woman-owned certification will come into play when there's $1 of federal funds. So if there's a project, say a transportation project that's coming in, and like the stadium, I think, is that stadium, council member, using public funds, federal funds, or just local?
Well, if there's an affordable housing component, then they probably will get a bond to do affordable housing, but at this point, it's going to be private developers.
Okay, yeah, which we love too. So I would say for you, Sean, is go the local small, and then I would look at some of the corporations and look at some of the contractors for their own internal relationships with you, because one of the great things about being a woman now is that they do want to work with local small women business owners. So that would be another way that I would try to take that angle and say, hey, contractor, you need to get your plan in place as it relates to, I saw someone in DEI, in DEI, we can help you do that. And by the way, we happen to be a local small business.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so just a quick time check. We have like 7 minutes left. I do want to get to the comment that Jamie made. I'm going to address Lori on this one. I want to continue to take questions here. And then in 7 minutes, I want to what's the action? Like if we want to do one small thing, right? What does that action look like? But first, Lori, I think Jamie might have been referencing the pink tax bill. Is that, she said lipstick, which I think might mean pink.
I love it. Yeah. And that was another bill. There's a whole list of bills on the equal pay, the California Family Leave Act, the pink tax. Yes, that was one that Senator Hannah Beth Jackson wanted to do prior to her terming out. God bless her, it was right after SB 826, and she was ready to take on another huge deal. And are you guys familiar with the pink tax, right? The marketing that goes on, right, for girls' products, women's products. Okay.
We pay more for anything pink, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So interesting, very interesting. I think it was Assembly member, I can't remember the name. I'm not going to waste the time, but anyway, yes, it was, I could see her face. It was introduced, but it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
And part of it's because at the time, NAWBO California thought, you know what, we're going to take a pause.
Mm-hmm.
We won't, we don't want to be sponsoring this bill this year, that kind of thing. And then COVID, of course, hit. So is that bill going to come back again? Possibly. Bauer Kahan, I think, is Assemblymember Bauer Kahan out of Northern California. I think that bill is going to come back. One bill that you should know that's really very good, and I can keep you posted. You guys will know as soon as the bills are introduced. I'll have a full list to everybody on what the bills are of interest. AB 511 by Assemblymember Murasucci was signed by the governor. This establishes a crowdfunding program in California. We're now one of 35 other states who have a crowdfunding platform and allowed to crowdfund in California. And this is a great way to, as an alternative method to raise capital, for small businesses who want to expand. And so the regulations are being drafted on that, and that will go into effect in January.
Awesome.
Shanae, you had a question? Oh, I thought, Shanae, you were waving like you wanted to say something.
No.
And Jamie, sorry, I know you pulled off mute, but you have a bit of background noise. So I plopped you back on mute there. I apologize. So in the last 5 minutes that we have, I just want to, and if you have a question, yes, put in the chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But I want to make sure we have like an action, right? So there's an opportunity to engage small, kind of mid-level, big. Let's assume maybe we're not all ready to run for, Congress, city council, anything of the above, but we want to take some action. Marty, I'm going to start with you. What's one thing that we should do to move this forward?
First, I would honestly, everyone contact Shanae and Lori.
There you go. Perfect.
They have great advice on how to actually, do the work to get listed. I mean, obviously get listed as a vendor with the city of San Diego, but if it's not, Shanae and Lori, who are, I'm sure, very busy, but they're experts in their field. Yeah. And, they're actually done the work to make sure that they do get small and local businesses contracts awarded, and figure out what you need to do to get listed, to get on the list, to make sure you are considered or you are eligible when these opportunities come up, so that, people aren't caught flat-footed when they find out the bid is closing tomorrow, but you had to have registered to be a listed vendor and you never did. So that would be the first step, honestly, is to get registered so you can be on the list, be eligible, get your small business certification or local owned business certification. That's what I would advise you do. So
I love it. Awesome. Brilliant. Lori, what should we do here? What's our action?
I think, as San Diego chapter, I think that you should recommend that NAWBO California make a motion the next time the board meets to be a co-sponsor. And that would go for the LA chapter too, to be a co-sponsor of whatever the bill number is for the procurement bill, because we can get that bill going. And it's just too bad that it wasn't done. Also, I really recommend that you get in contact with Danny Fitzgerald, your SBDC, because he can help position you in how to position yourself to go after those grants. That's what they do, and there's no cost.
Yes. I love it. Awesome. All right, Shanae.
And I would also like us to put on our radar, all these are great from the local and statewide, but to put on our radar personal net worth. And this is something that is mandated federally, where the personal net worth is $1.32 million. In the economy in California, $1.32 million is not a lot. So we would love to, plant that seed here, that one day that we as NAWBO California, NAWBO Local San Diego, and NAWBO National look at having that threshold of $1.32 million as your personal net worth upped so that we could have more businesses as small businesses.
Got it. Okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. Bridget, thank you for supporting us with all this extra links and information. We really, really appreciate you. We have 2 minutes left. Jill, do you want to say anything in closing here?
I don't. I just want to thank you all so much for sharing. It was so great. I guess, Shanae, maybe could you just describe what you were talking about right then? I didn't quite understand.
I know. I was like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So does that mean like how much you make in your life, or
no? Okay. So yeah, absolutely. I realized that I kind of plopped you right there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So with personal net worth is considered for your federal certification, which is as a small business. So if your personal net worth is over $1.32 million, excluding your home, you will not be considered for a small
to qualify.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
The other thing that is brewing here in LA, but I think in other places, also state and also national NAWBO, is a certification process that's more unified. One certification, not all the different ones that you have to do. So that would be something I think that NAWBO, it would be a great thing if we got behind.
Yes.
Right.
We'll add that to the bill.
Got that. Yes.
Add that to the bill.
Or is that another bill?
Yeah, keep it in the same bill, Jermaine.
Jill, we got to get a Civics 101 going here. I think.
I know. I'm like, I got a question. Thank you so much. This has been awesome though. Thank you all for the panelists and people just showing up. It's just like, it makes me feel good. We gotta get these small groups going and just talk about this stuff, and that's how, and spread the word.
And someday we'll do it in a living room, like you
Yeah,
said. Very
awesome.
You're like, I grew up with this in my living room. And I'm like, it's
I'd also like to suggest maybe we all get back together again in March.
Yeah.
Because then we see what bills have legs.
Yes.
We see, it's early enough. The hearings are starting. So it's we can share with the council member what bills are important to you guys, and so that she's in the know. So we hope that she'll be in Sacramento one day.
Yeah. And we have a legislative platform at San Diego where we get to advocate. So I can tell, Tony Atkins, whoever, I think this is a good bill for you to pass up for the San Diego city in Sacramento. So
Great.
Oh, cool.
And I want to, I know we have some folks dropping off here, but we did record this. We will post it on NAWBO's YouTube channel and share it liberally. But with that, I want to circle back. Lori, you had talked about the Propel Conference, and that's a great way to get involved in May. I know it's coming up here. We got a bit of time, but that's something I want to highlight and underline again. It is a great way to get involved. California Propel Conference that NAWBO California puts on.
Great.
I love it.
Awesome.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for your time. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, thank you much for your time.
Thanks
Really
very
appreciate it.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Have
you.
a great
Have a
night.
nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.